Yeah, like that's when you, in your head, start going into those dark places of questioning the integrity of the game, because it's like, I don't understand how they can come up with that.
So, the knock on Cleary had been he's dominated NRL level, but not at state of origin level. Well, reading those stats, I don't know what more the New South Wales fans want from him. I don't know what more the media.
What a great day to be wearing blue. I've got me Blatchy's Blues t-shirt underneath. Steve, you were out there. What's the big storyline from last night?
Oh, for me, Cleary getting the job done. I thought he was simply phenomenal last night. So yeah, that was the big one. The other one was the amount of HIAs and potential injuries that could have some impact on this round, certainly, and then for a couple of weeks to come, by the looks of it.
Yeah, thought we probably out Queenslanded Queensland to a certain degree. Of course, we'll talk about the refereeing decision. And of course, as we do every week, we'll preview this weekend's games as well. Let's dive in. So the first thing that I noticed at the start of the game was, not at the start of the game, maybe when it was clear that we're getting on top, that the crowd went quiet.
Yep.
And I cannot believe I'm hearing that the ground announcer is having to encourage them to do the Queensland chant. Now, para fans cop a lot of shit because they've got the pre-recorded thing, which the fans have told them to stop doing, and they have. But I couldn't believe my ears, mate. It must have been almost eerie, was it, with the silence?
It was. So I've been lucky enough to go to a number of origins at Suncorp over the years, and I've never seen a crowd as quiet and as subdued as what it was last night. So, New South Wales, probably 2 or 3 sets into the game, got that 6 again on the back of Jack Bostock's hit up, and that changed the whole game. And from there, the crowd were very, very quiet. So you're spot on with the ground announcer. He went to the Queensland chant a number of times throughout the game, especially when you could tell Queensland were under a pump a few times, and he did his best to try and get the crowd into it. But I've never seen it. I've been up here nearly 20 years, and I've been going to I haven't missed too many of the origins. I've been lucky enough, and by far and away, that was the quietest it's been. So, I think to the point earlier about Cleary, those 2 tries very early in the contest, I think that just sapped the wind out of the crowd and just took them out of the equation, which is, it's a monster effort to get that crowd at Suncorp to be quiet and to take them out of it. So it was a huge performance in that first 15, 20 minutes from Cleary, mate.
Oh, it sure was. And the other thing that really stood out for me is that we talked about how at different times they haven't been energised, that we didn't have any faith in them. But what I saw immediately was line speed, was the big men making post-contact meters, and Cleary running the football. And I just remember thinking very early on, going, okay, I hope we can sustain this, because this is what we've been waiting for all series.
Yeah. What I noticed, we obviously got a different view. You're watching on TV. I was live, and I was down probably on the 10-metre line on the side of the field. What I noticed early on, while I still disagree with the starting pack Laurie Daley had, they changed the way they played. So Barnett went absolute berserk in the first 10 minutes. He had hit up after hit up after hit up, where Payne Haas sort of just took a backward seat. He was certainly on the field. He was doing his job, but he wasn't really pushing it. They sent Mitch Barnett out there clearly to get off to an absolute flyer. And Barnett, we were talking earlier in the week around someone having to get back and take those early carries that Tuo's so accustomed to doing. And that was Barnett. He was really big, and I think he was a bit underestimated how good a job he did in that first 15 minutes to get on top. And then once he come off, they brought Murray on, and then Payne Haas went bang. So they had those fresh legs of Murray and really, really fresh Payne Haas. And that was when the momentum started. Cleary started running the ball, and all of a sudden it just snowballed on Queensland. They couldn't keep up.
No, absolutely. We talked about it on the Monday show, why we thought we could win, not with any great confidence, but they did do some of the things we talked about, which was slow down the ruck, lie on them for longer, dominate that middle. Yeah, I noticed that too with Mitch Barnett. He was unbelievable. He wasn't mentioned much in the aftermath, probably because it was a short stint, but he really set the tone for the guys like Hudson Young and Payne Haas and Adam Fanua-Blake. Wow, he showed what we all hoped when the eligibility changed. The other thing that we talked about was we need that spine to leave their ego at the door and just play their role. And I think, particularly while Teddy was still on, they did that perfectly. Moses took the long kicks. Cleary ran the show. Tedesco didn't get caught up didn't get in their road. He was, if anything, he was almost the battering ram coming out of their own end off the back of the early carries from the wingers and Barnett that you mentioned.
Yep.
And it was referenced in commentary. If you watch it back, Andrew John said that Robson was just firing these bullets, and he was getting Nathan 15, 20 metres clear of the ruck, not passing it back to Yo, who then puts him under pressure. He was giving him early ball, wider than the ruck, and it was clear they had a much different game plan, and it was impressive.
Yeah,
really impressive.
Certainly live, that was exactly how it felt, mate. Moses, especially that first half, he was almost unsighted until the fifth tackle, and that long kicking game was very evident, especially compared to Queensland. I didn't think Queensland kicked very well at all. I thought a number of times Munster and Walker both put up kicks that weren't getting the result they wanted. It wasn't deep enough and it wasn't in the right spots. They did hit grass a few times, but I think that was more a case of Kohler being out of position at this level at fullback. He wasn't quite experienced at it. But I thought the long kicking game where Moses was huge. And then to your point, while they didn't give the keys to Cleary 100%, it was Cleary show to run. And, 25 minutes into the game with 3 tries all the way through the middle, like Cleary's 2 tries, and then Murray, I believe it was, scored the third one. Because they just played direct footy. There was none of this setting for a play. There was none of this, to your point, playing off Yo. From that 20th minute when Barnett come off, Yo played front row. So there was not as much ball playing from him as what he usually does. And you could see the results. At the end of the day, we called for a more simpler game plan off New South Wales, more direct. And that's exactly what they gave us. So, well done. Laurie Daley's copped a lot of shit, and he certainly threw a few hand grenades back at the press conference.
He did.
But whether we still agree with interchange policies and starting packs and all that sort of stuff, at the end of the day, he got the game plan smack bang on for game 3.
Yeah, I think the other masterstroke from Loz was getting in the 1996 team to talk to them. I'm not sure if I said on the pod, but I think I mentioned to you, Tim Brasher did a post about they'd had a meeting with the team, the 1996 squad. It was a great evening, and he sort of signed that post off with the Blues are looking good. And that was the sort of only thing for me that I was clinging to, that, okay, well, maybe he's got that team in there to inspire them. They looked inspired. The energy that they played with, the connection, they just looked so together. It was against all odds, really. Like, this is one, there's been plenty of series that New South Wales should have won and didn't, and this feels like the opposite. It's for the first time, it's one that Queensland, like, it's almost their unlosable series. Like, they were very unlucky in game 1. Everyone acknowledges that. They blew us off the park in the second half in game 2. But really, apart from, again, you and Will talked about this on Monday, the early kick to then dominate possession early on, really, that first half, they were completely outclassed, and in a way they were a bit lucky to get that late try off a questionable knock on, which we'll come to when we talk about refereeing. It was surprising. It was surprising. I think that they missed Lindsay Collins, and I think they missed a trick not bringing on Pat Carrigan, because they're 2 names that have just been the cornerstone of their pack for so long, and they're the sort of guys that just do that grunt work, and they were noticeably missing.
Yeah, you're spot on, mate. I went in, hoping above all, hope New South Wales were getting the win, but expecting Queensland to do the job quite comfortably. And the first 3 sets of the game, that's what it looked like. Queensland dominated. They were in total control. Their first kick went to grass, and Teddy made a bit of a meal of that. He was in the wrong position at the time. But then, as I said, if you go back and watch the Jack Bostock and just watching it live, that six again got them down the end of the field. Queensland made an error, and then all of a sudden, Nathan Cleary scores a try, 15 minutes into the game, and everyone thinks, holy shit, what's gone on here? And to your point, just feeling it live, that hammer try right on half time, that was out of nowhere. Regardless of the decision and anything else causing it, that was just absolutely against the run of play. It could have quite easily been 18-0 at half time because they weren't in the contest outside of those first two sets of the game. We spoke about it, and I was a bit cautious about speaking about it on Monday because I just couldn't think it had happened. But we spoke on Monday around Queensland not very often, or this era of Queensland not very often being favourites. No matter what they do, New South Wales seem to be picked as favourites, and how they'd react to that. They sort of played like that. They sort of played like they thought we just go out and we're just going to do our thing and it'll work out for us. Yeah. And New South Wales just played that little bit better.
Yeah, absolutely. I actually go one step further and saying against the run, we scored the third try. I think there was probably about 10, 11 minutes to go, maybe. I, at that point, thought there's every chance we go in 30-0 up here. Such was the dominance of that middle 15 minutes. We were on such a roll, making easy meters, and they were really struggling to contain us in the ruck. They're getting Payne Haas a couple of passes wide, running it at Sam Walker, and Liam Martin just terrorising Cam Munster on the edge and setting up one of the tries through that. It was a good performance.
It was.
There was, of course, part of me that's seen this script too many times before, and when they scored just before halftime, I was concerned.
Yeah. That, again, because they come against the run of play, there were a number of Blues fans. I was sitting in my group and then around me, and everyone just sort of looked at each other at the corner of their eye. Even though we were in dominant, it was 18-0 before that try, everyone just starts to think about the old memories and the old defeats. But look, credit to Daley and the Blues. They did well. If I look to your point, you mentioned Carrigan. I looked at some of the decisions that Billy Slater made, this morning in hindsight. I don't know whether he got his interchange right. You mentioned Carrigan. He brought Trent Liero on after 15 minutes. He hadn't played a lot of game time with Origin the first two games. Now, whether Carrigan wasn't 100% and they had to go in that direction or not real sure. But to bring Trent Liero on and for him to play as long as what he did, and then the first time the interchange happened with Walsh come on for the HIA with Walker, but then there was the Ponga off. So there was a lot of disjointed decisions, some forced with the HIAs, but there was a lot of disjointed decisions from Queensland. I think when he realised that they were in a bit of panic here and we've got to go out after points, it didn't look like he had that plan. It looked like he was trying to make that decision on the go, which we haven't seen that from Billy Slater the entire time he's coached Queensland. He's been methodical and really calculated. So I'd love to have been in the box and have listened to some of the decision making he was going through, because that just didn't seem like his normal process for mine.
Yeah, you mentioned Trent Liero. He actually looked, just on Billy, he looked under pressure in the box, and that's like, he seems quite calm. Trent Liero, I thought it was actually one of his better Origin games, because he has had a few where he's had limited minutes and not had much of an impact. He was good, but to your point about him coming on when they had the option to go in another direction, he actually missed the tackle for Murray to score that pretty soft try up the middle. Pat Carrigan ain't missing that tackle, underdone or otherwise. He's not letting him through there. And so, maybe he did miss a trick. From the TV, when they put Reece Walsh on, like, that scared the shit out of me. And he had some touches where you're like, oh, man, like, we're in trouble here. And then when Ponga went off, when Walker passed his HIA and Walsh goes back to fullback, again, I'm more concerned about having Walsh there than I am about Ponga. Not because Ponga's not a good player, but just in that environment, speed and just the unpredictable, that's what you just you described Kalen when he was a younger man. He's
Yep.
more controlled and measured now. But when Walsh came on, I think he did pull the right rein then. But yeah, maybe some of the other interchanges. I just can't, for the life of me, understand why he didn't get Pat Carrigan on. If he's on the bench and he's fit enough to be on the bench, he has to be in that rotation.
Yeah. Yeah, you're right, mate. Certainly, it appeared when Walsh come onto the field, we didn't realise at the time Walker was in a HIA. So we actually thought that hooked.
It was a panic.
It was a panic. Yeah. So that really, the crowd, Queenslanders as well in my area, everyone thought they'd hooked him, which would have been a huge story because the vision on the big screen looked like Walker was down in the dumps and like he'd been hooked. So that was a monster story. And then when we realised it was a HIA, one thing I'll give, he looked really susceptible in the front line of defence. He certainly shouldn't be defending in the front line. It wasn't long. They parked him out on the right-hand side, and I thought I thought there was an opportunity to go at him for a little while, but they didn't really. But then what he did in attack, he's just a gunslinger. He went down the left side a number of times, and he's just firing the ball out to the wing or out to the centre. He's got some juice. So, a fully fit and confident Reece Walsh could have had a bigger impact on this semi-final series, this State of Origin series, because you could just see the way he was playing was different to what Munster and Walker was offering, and for that matter, Ponga at the time. So, it'll be interesting. We won't know, but it's interesting to see what Slater thinks in hindsight now with his decision with Ponga over Walsh.
Yeah, I was with you because that was at the time that I mentioned before where I thought we could have really run away with it. They should have been going at Walsh from the moment he was defending on that edge, but they didn't find their way there. The other thing I'd say is that our line defence, particularly when Walsh was on throwing bullets, is that's the best we've defended since Madge was coached 2 years ago. That's what it reminded me of. They were so calm. It just looked like a blue wall that was going to be really hard to get around. And as it was, they scored that one good try just before half time. But the other try was from a lucky kick, and the other one was because Bradman Best was defending on the wing and just got that all wrong. So, it was pretty impressive defensive, particularly when they were camped on their own line. Go on.
Yeah, you're spot on, mate. The one I was going to mention, you talk about Barnett's first when he didn't get the pats on the back. I thought Liam Martin's addition was huge, not only for what he did on his side, but I think it actually gave Hudson Young a bit of a kick up the arse around this is what we should be doing, because they took Walker and Munster attacking wise almost out of the game. They didn't really have too much impact in what they were doing, and I think that was a direct result from Liam Martin. He topped the tackle count for New South Wales. But I think when you look at Walker made 38 metres and Munster 58, not a hell of a lot of action. So I think that was a massive inclusion. And you've banged on about him since the preseason, mate. Bradman Best, he's a serious footballer. So two guys that were really, really strong. I think Cleary was deserved man of the match. But those two, just watching it live, had big impacts on the game. And in hindsight, both would have been there for the first two games as well if it hadn't been from injury, I suppose. So another interesting one to come from selections.
Absolutely. From where my vantage point, it was obviously Cleary, but Payne, Haas, and Hudson Young were the dominant players. Martin played his part, and he'd had some incredible moments, origin moments, right when he came in and he flattened Robert Toyer in the coming in from, like they said, described 30 metres in to snap him. Moments like that, and just getting in Munster's face. Yeah, that's what we needed. That Joey even said in the commentary, yeah, that's our lunatic. Like that's what we needed, and he certainly delivered on that. Now we need to talk about that the knock on, because Bradman Best scored that try, and you're right. That has been something I've been banging on about. He every time he plays Origin, he steps up and plays well above his club form. And yesterday, take away that try. Yesterday, his defence was great, but every time he touched the ball, he looked threatening. But I've watched that play back again and again. Not only is it clear that he touched it, you can actually see the indent in the football. Like you can see the football depress. So anyone still trying to argue that it wasn't a knock on is crazy. And it was at a key moment. I can't for the life of me work out how they missed that. Like everyone from the first time you watched it, you're like, oh, he touched that. Like I don't know anyone who said first time they watched it had any other thought. And then, like that's when you, in your head, start going into those dark places of questioning the integrity of the game, because it's like, I don't understand how they can come up with that. But on the flip side, how many times have we been on the wrong end of refereeing decisions that have cost us? I mentioned before, the try just before halftime, Marky Mark goes up, and to me it was clear that Hammer got the first touch, and so it was knock on both ways. It should have been a Blues ball. We would have been on our own 30 with a full set of 6, almost like a 7 tackle set. And instead, we're defending our line again, and we concede. So these things go both ways. I'm leaning more and more towards what Andrew Johns said in the post game, which is play these incidents at full speed, and let's look at it how we saw it live, and then make a decision on that, and then just be done with it. This slowing it down to freeze frames and all it's done, it hasn't taken away the discussion and the controversy. It's just shifted the line of where that is. It hasn't really achieved what it set out to do in the first place.
Yeah, no, you're spot on, mate. Obviously, live, even on the big screen, we couldn't really tell on either of the decisions. We just, got to go with what the referee's given, and I haven't seen them back, unfortunately, as yet. I'll rewatch the game tonight or tomorrow, but it's just disappointing. We continue to talk about the officiating. I think end result, the best team won. They played better. I would be, I know the most diehard Maroons fan will argue that with me, but I think the Blues were the better side for Game 3 and they won the game. But again, it just goes to show you this is the elite of the elite, and they're getting these calls wrong when they shouldn't. Like it just boggles the mind, mate. It really does.
Yeah, absolutely. Queensland, where do you reckon it went wrong?
Mate, I just think I just think they got the what's the right way to put it? Not complacency, but I think it got to the stage where they thought they were favourites. I think they just played like that. Their handling errors were very un-Queensland like. 70% completion, 13 errors. And you just can't do that at NRL level, let alone State of Origin. That possession just swings in New South Wales' favour, and then they get the momentum from that. You don't get 6 agains, and you don't get penalties unless you've got the football. And Queensland just didn't hold on the football well enough. So that error rate certainly hurt them. And I think their kicking game, just watching it live, it just felt like they weren't getting the distance that Moses was, and they weren't trying to, even when they did get to fifth tackle, they weren't really capitalising on it, and it allowed New South Wales, without having Tuo there as well, it allowed New South Wales just to continue that territorial advantage. So I think I put it down to those two things, mate. I think they were just a little off, and we were a bit better, especially in defence.
Yep, I think you're about right. You think about games 1 and 2 when they were regularly having attacking kicks where they were competing for the ball. Now, they had some of those, but definitely not the same amount. And, ultimately, the turnover of ball, very un-Queensland-like. They just knocked so many balls on. If you compare it to the completion rate in Melbourne was something ridiculous. Like they only missed 2 sets or something. The first game wasn't too much different. And it feels good, because we've been on the receiving end. I know we all know what it feels like to feel like we've been dudded, and that's how they'd be feeling at the moment. Although I think, as you said, in their heart of hearts, they would know that they were beaten by the better team. But we also know for years of history that the better team doesn't always win Origin. So it was certainly a decision that could have gone either way. I just want to make a public apology to Laurie Daley, because we talked a lot about how he didn't fill us with any confidence, and we questioned whether he was the right person to give that clarity and to fill us with confidence. But that performance yesterday was complete. What's interesting is what I learned this morning on one of the podcasts I was listening to. They talked about most coaches have a journalist in their pocket who they can feed information to and spin the right story. Laurie doesn't do that. He just does it on his own to a certain degree, doesn't care, whatever, I'm just going to focus on me. So I didn't think he could get them up to win that game, but he has. He's won the series, probably one that we didn't think that they were capable of. He's picked the right team, he's got the rotations right, and he's inspired them to a pretty complete performance. So, I apologise, Loz, and well done from all of us in blue. Do you think that now cements Nathan Cleary in that top echelon of players now that because he's dominated Origin before, but it's the first decider he's won, and he's had 2 games where he's grabbed the game by the scruff of the neck, if not for 80 minutes, but for the key moments to win us a series.
Yeah, I think so, mate. So I sent you something early today. So he's won a Wally Lewis medal. He's had the equal most man of the matches for New South Wales. He's equal most points in an Origin decider. He's won 1 Brad Fittler medal. This year will be a second.
Yep.
Most points for New South Wales. And that's just in Origin, right? Obviously, everyone knows about the Dally M's and the grand finals, etc. The Clive Churchill medals. So, the knock on Cleary had been he's dominated NRL level, but not at state of origin level. Well, reading those stats, I don't know what more the New South Wales fans want for him. I don't know what more the media wants for him. All this at 28, I think he is, 28, 29. That's just ridiculous, right? Now, he can go on. He clearly looks after himself. He's super fit. He could go on and play till he's 35, 36 and really rewrite the record books if he's already achieved this at 28. So I genuinely don't know what more the fans or the journalists can ask from Cleary. For me, he was already there anyway, but this just puts a full stop on it for me, and he should be thought of as, if not our best blue ever, that he's certainly starting to head in that direction and those conversations. And if they continue to put the right team around him, I know there's talk about Izzy Katoa. I think that's well premature. I think Cleary, as good as Katoa is and as good as he'll continue to be, I think Cleary is still head and shoulders above any other player in the comp at the moment.
Yeah, absolutely. If you look at his age, he's just coming into his prime as a playmaker. Interesting, as you were saying that, I just thought, I'm going to look this up. So Cooper Cronk debuted for Queensland in 2010 when he would have been 26. And from memory, those first couple, he was only on the bench as playing at 14. So he's not playing halfback till he's probably 29, I'm guessing. And then he played until the age of 30, that'd be 34 or 35, I think that is. I'm trying to do the math. So there is many, provided he stays in the NRL, and as you said, stays fit, mate, he could end with some absolutely incredible record. I think that's Laurie calling now, mate, to accept our apology.
He's on the hotline saying, I appreciate it, Hawk.
Exactly. Yeah, so you're right. Like he has achieved an incredible amount. And really, he's won Dally M Halfback of the Year, but the only thing that stopped him from winning the Dally M Player of the Year has been the fact that he's had injury blocks in the middle of the season, which is, and actually one year he had a suspension as well. He had that unfortunate tackle that got mistimed and he dumped someone on their head. He's more than likely going to win it this year, you would think, given how the dominance of Penrith and of him. Yeah, wow. We'll look back maybe and think, why did we doubt him, given his age and given how many tomorrows he's still got. What a fantastic performance.
Yeah, I think he's run away Dally M, mate, as long as he stays fit and healthy on the field. Obviously, Jackson Ford was running second when it went behind closed doors, and he's out with injuries. So I can't see it going any other way but Cleary's for the way home. I think they'll regroup Penrith and get on their bikes again as well. I think they really want to put a massive exclamation mark on this season. So for me, I don't know why there was a knock on him to start with, but to do what he's done and continues to do, a super special talent, mate. So I'm glad that he got the pats on the back. So hopefully they'll leave him alone for a little while.
Yeah, exactly. Just what we do as fans. We want perfection, and we blame other people when our team doesn't win for all of the miseries in our life. It's human nature. So it's good that he's been able to put those guys to bed. I also think there's an element of certain players seem to attract it more than others. You look at a guy like Braithen Astor, who had just an outstanding career and probably achieved well beyond his natural abilities compared to some of those absolute superstars, and yet he was just always panned because of one comment from someone about him being the next Brad Fittler or something, and he forever lived with that. So I think Nathan's probably copped a fair bit there, probably because his dad was a first grader and his dad's a coach, and because he got picked on Origin when he was probably before his time. But mate, what more can he do? Okay. The real season starts now. We're back to full rounds of footy. This is when it all happens. Do you think there are Origin players who need to play this weekend for their team, and there are ones that are more than likely going to sit out? Obviously, the HIAs are going to take care of themselves.
Yeah, HIA will definitely take care of themselves. Look, I think the bulk of the Queenslanders will want to play. Well, everyone will want to play, but I think the Queenslanders, they'll want to put what happened on Wednesday, try and put it in the back of their mind, as hard as that'll be for them. So I certainly expect the Storm, unless there's any injuries, the Storm and boys to back up, because they're in desperate need of a win. They're against the Titans, so they would obviously expect the 2 points, but they can't afford not to continue on that mini roll that they're on at the moment. So I'd expect them to go back. The Warriors look like they're going to rest. I know we'll go through the team shortly, but the teams at the top of the ladder can probably afford to rest one or two of them, and you don't have to rest them all at once. And there's also guys that'll get managed on time. They may only play 40 minutes as opposed to 60 for those middle forwards, etc. So I certainly think there'll be a few players that need to back up. Those teams that are really fighting it out for the bottom half of the 8. But, expect a few to be on the sideline this weekend for mine.
Absolutely. Let's get into the game. So West Tigers, they're starting to get back to full strength. They've still got Coruscant out and looks like he will be probably for a month.
Yep.
But again, you're still just, given their form line and how they've been travelling, you just think the Warriors are going to be way too good here. Is there a way you see the Tigers winning this one?
No, I don't, mate. I think they're going to struggle, even at home. At Campbelltown, I think they're going to struggle. Huge inclusions for the Warriors with James Fisher-Harris returning. As I mentioned, Capewell and Barnett are going to drop out of the side with Origin duties. They'll just send them back home to get them rested up. But to have Fisher-Harris back, he's a huge inclusion. Cam Pereira is back in. Sorry? Halasima is back. So there's class there, and I think they'll be too strong for West. I don't know whether it's been confirmed, but I heard a report that the Tigers have told Jerome Lulawai that he's free to negotiate with another club next year and get him off the books a year early, so they can start to offer that money to a few of the other players that they need to tie up long term. So if that's true, then
Dragons.
Dragons, mate. If that's true, mate, the circus around that signing, which has played a pivotal part for mine in the Tigers' ups and downs this year, could be tough. So look, the Tigers will be trying, no question about it, but without Appy, for mine, I just don't think they'll have the points in them to knock the Warriors over.
No, just on Barnett and Capewell being out. Kurt Capewell's just been one of those players that's just an Origin player that he plays so far above his ability, but that was probably his worst game in the maroon jersey last night, turning over the ball, missing tackles. Just wonder if there's something else going on with him, or whether he just got caught up in what the rest of the team was doing. That is really interesting with Luai. It's it'd be hard pressed finding someone to fork out that sort of cash for the year. But if they're going to offer to pay a chunk of it, to me, that's a no-brainer where he ends up, and that's back at the Panthers for a year.
Yeah, well, it's an interesting one. Penrith have got their own argy-bargies with the salary cap at the moment. Obviously, Leota looks like he's gone. Tuo's looks like he's going to be gone as well. So there's a lot happening with Penrith's salary cap. And I think everyone's jockeying for the PNG signing avalanche to hit as well. So there's a lot of movements. But if he leaves the Tigers after this year, we've already, for mine, put a red line through them. I can't see them making the 8 with the draw they've got ahead. Do we class what he's done at the Tigers as a success? Certainly not for mine on the ladder. He might have brought more corporate dollars in. He might have brought more memberships in. He might have even attracted some other players to the club. But as far as the points on the table, I really can't call it a success. So if he does leave, he'll certainly want to pull his finger out in these last few weeks to try and jag that 8th spot.
Yeah, I think in terms of if we just take away the scoreboard, just as in terms of a cultural shift, I think he's definitely been successful there. You think of some of those hardline stances that they've put on certain things, and how he's backed his coach, and he's really helped deliver that message of what the coach was trying to achieve from a cultural perspective. Then I think, yeah, absolutely, I think you'll see the benefits of that in the years to come. But if you want to judge it by just performance, then it's a failure, because he said he wanted to take them to where they hadn't been, and it's not going to happen this year, barring some sort of minor miracle. I'm just had a quick flick through the teams. I just can't see a team that are going to want him. The only team that might make a bit of sense would be the Bunnies, but as if I can't see Wayne going for that. The rest of the team have kind of got their spine pretty much set. So, interesting story. It would definitely be a circus. It also wouldn't surprise me, because they're playing at Campbelltown and they've got a fair few of their stars back. It wouldn't surprise me if they have a real crack in this one. Just can't see victory, but fingers crossed for the Tigers anyway. This is an interesting one. I think there's a fair chance the Dolphins will rest some of their Origin players. The Sharks have started to find some of that consistency that we've been talking about. Fanua Blake didn't play big minutes, although it was quite physical for him. Brayley again didn't play big minutes. You'd expect both of them to probably back up. This should be a good game.
Yeah, this will be a cracking game, and I think you're spot on, mate. I think that it'll come down to who backs up for Origin. This is a monster game for the top 4 chances of both sides. They're both on 24 points. Sharkies have still got to buy. Dolphins have still got to buy up their sleeve, so they've had the extra win. But this is a real key game for them for that. So both teams are pretty well stacked, even without their Origin contingent. Obviously, the Dolphins have got a number of players. Bostock certainly won't be backing up on the back of the HIA. But yeah, the Hemmers and Plaths, Cobbos of the world, it'll be really interesting to see if they back up. But pretty stacked side both teams. So on the back of me thinking that the Dolphins might rest because they've got a few more, I probably lean towards the Sharks. But this would be a game day talk, mate, when we see the final 17s for mine.
Yeah, I think you're right. I still like the Dolphins. They've been pretty impressive with their second string side, for want of a better term. But I think you'd expect Plath to back up. Flegler didn't play huge minutes. He might be a chance. I don't know about Cobbo. He had a really good series, but he looked tired at the back end. He made a couple of uncharacteristic for this year's version of Selwyn Cobbo, but out of. Yeah, but maybe more like when he played when he wasn't at that same intensity. And again, I just can't trust the Sharks yet. They're starting to find consistency, but there's too many questions for mine.
No, it'll be an interesting watch, that one, mate.
It will, as will this one, because the Dogs have kind of hit a little bit of mini form, but two teams again that have done it pretty tough this year, and there's a bit of history between these two clubs. You would imagine this is going to be another tight one.
Yeah, I would think so, mate. Josh Papali's back, and so's Noah Martin, the young tearaway that started the season with an absolute bang. So that'll certainly strengthen the pack. Ethan Strange will certainly back up and play. He got some time playing in the centres on that right-hand side in the back end of the game, but he would have gotten through that fine. Hudson Young obviously played a huge game, so whether they look to rest Hudson Young or not, but they look pretty well, as good as they can put on the park at the moment, the Raiders.
Yeah.
The Bulldogs aren't far off. Crichton, you would expect to play. Carraz is carrying a niggle. That is certainly frustrating myself and a number of Supercoach players out there with his ribs. There's a bit of uncertainty there, but again, they're pretty well, pretty full on. A couple of their back rowers are just starting to get back into. Preston's been named in the 21 jersey, so they've really missed him and Kickow.
Yeah, you'd expect him to play.
Yeah, they've won the last three, so they'll be going in with a bit of confidence. I just probably like the Raiders a little bit more. Just looking on paper, they just look like they're back to full strength and ready to rip in. So that'll be another close one though for my mate. That's certainly not not an easy one to pick.
Yeah, a couple of little side stories. Lockie Galvin spent some time in the Blues camp. You would imagine he would have just been a sponge, just trying to pick up as much as he could, particularly from the halves. It'd be interesting to see what he brings back from that. A little whisper doing the rounds that Para might be having a dip at Burton if they are prepared to let him walk early. To me, I like it for Para, but it's interesting given they dropped Dylan Brown last year because they were, talking about the future being now. But maybe what they've seen is some of those young guys haven't kicked on like they expected, and they want results now. So it's interesting how things can change. I like the Dogs in this one. I just think they're warming to something now. They seem to be getting back to that confidence that they had last year. But you're right, the Raiders have kind of been rising as well. So, yeah, toss of a coin for that one for mine. Yeah, I'd expect Jacob Preston to start, given he's been named in the 21. Otherwise, why have him there? Now, this is where you would expect a fair few of the dropouts to happen. I think it's a no-brainer for Para to rest Moses, given that they got Pezzett there. Teddy won't play. You'd imagine that Walker won't be there either. In fact, it doesn't even look like he was named originally, was he? He was in the 24, yeah. So you don't expect him to play after the head knock. I think if Para, like I've been talking about every week, if Para can complete at a really high level, like 90, 95%, then they can be in the game. But anything below that, that's going to be too outclassed in this one.
Yeah, spot on, mate. You'll definitely, Tedesco and Walker are big outs for the Roosters, but there's no need, with the spot the Roosters find themselves on the ladder, there's no need to play them. So they'll certainly get the week off. Well, they won't be allowed to play with the HIA, but they'll get the week off. Daniel Tupou plays his 300th, which is an outstanding achievement. He's been an absolute warrior for the Roosters out in the wing, scored a lot of tries over the years. So, the Origin players that are able to will want to be, out there on the field with him to celebrate that. But, yeah, those two are going to be massive outs. Look, for me, I just think, the Para come off that good win last week. But I think the Roosters has just still got a little bit too much class in the side. Cherry Evans and Savala are not a bad half combination when you lose your number one. So I think they'll play well. Cody Ramsey, you would think, will deputise for Tedesco. And I think the Roosters bandwagon will just roll on for another week, and they'll be back fit and firing for next week with Walker and Tedesco back, only missing 1 week.
Yeah, you would expect that to be the case. The only thing I'm clinging to is that the Roosters are one of those teams that can complete really low and turn over a lot of footy. So I'll be fingers crossed for that one. You mentioned Daniel Tupou. not only joining the 300 club, but he's crept up into third in the all-time try scorers. He went past Billy Slater. You'd expect him. I don't know if he's re-signed for next year, but you'd expect him to probably take Ken Irvine. I think given Alex Johnson just keeps on playing, he's probably not going to catch him. But yeah, a guy that's played since 2012. He also, probably about 2-3 years ago, it looked like he might have been done because his form really dipped on the back of a couple of injuries. The fact that he's come back the last couple of years and been so impressive and still finding his way to the try line, he's become an absolute weapon in the aerial stakes. It'll be a massive day for him and for the Roosters.
Yep. Certainly, mate. Hats off to him. It's been an impressive career, mate. Played plenty of rep football, and as you said, try-scoring weapon, mate. He was one of those aerial targets, and he's done a bloody good job for the Roosters for a long time, mate. So congratulations to him.
Absolutely. Bunnies Knights. I just think the Knights are going too good. Cody Walker out after that brain explosion, which brings Jaden Sullivan in, which will give him a bit more speed perhaps, but they're going to definitely miss all the creativity that Cody Walker provides. Yep. South's just too inconsistent. Knights on the rise. No brainer for me.
Yeah, I'm with you, mate. The old stage of Bennett's made a number of changes to the south side. He's dropped Little Trell out of the side. Campbell Graham's back in. Tallis Duncan's gone back into the centres. Dufty's starting at fullback over Jai Gray. So he's really not happy with what's happened over the last couple of weeks and has shaken it up. You mentioned Cody Walker. I think Murray, he just seems to want to play rugby league every day of the week. So you'd assume him to be there, even if he doesn't play as many minutes as normal. Then the Knights, to your point, just seem to keep rolling. So they lose Saifidi, and he's been a huge player for him this year. He's truth be told, probably had one of his best seasons for a number of years. So that'll be a big out for them. But yeah, for mine, I think they're just starting to get rolling. That back line for the Knights is just super impressive. So I think they'll have too many points in them, and I don't think the South's defence will be able to hold them, mate.
I don't think so either. I think there's every chance that, given it's Sunday, that the Knights players will back up, which would be good news for them. There's a little note in the NRL physio chat about Kaloa Matangi leaving training early due to a knee injury, which is the same knee he did earlier in the year. So that's one to watch if you're tipping on this one as well, because there is a chance that he'll miss out. Campbell Graham back is a big end for them. He's one of those players that really can stabilise a defensive system on that edge because of his hardness and his communication. So I'm not sure if he's enough to change the trajectory of the Bunnies season, though. There should be another belter. The Seagulls have been going win-loss for the last sort of 6 weeks. So this one they should win. But if both teams play up to the level that we have seen from them at different times this year, could be another absolute belter, this one.
Yeah, it will be. They'll certainly be hoping, the Cowboys, that their origin players can back up. Expected, Nenai and Cotter to back up. The big inclusion for me is number 23, Tom Dearden. So if to your point earlier with Preston, if Dearden's been fit enough to be called in the 23 jersey, then there'd only be a late minute scare that avoids him from playing. So that's a big inclusion for them. It changes up their back line quite considerably. And just him being their leader, he's just the go-to. He's the pulse of the team. So that'll be a monster inclusion for them. This is a really interesting game as well, as far as the top 8 goes. Both teams have had 9 wins. So they've both got a draw, a bye coming up as well for the back end of the season. So this is almost 4 points, as they say, because you're getting 2 of your own and you're stopping a close competitor from getting 2. So this is a monster game, and Brookvale's never easy. So, the Cowboys, I know they're going to be up against it. It'll be a full house out there at Brookie on a Sunday afternoon. But I don't mind the look of the Cows. I think, to your point, Manly's just been a little bit inconsistent, and I think the Cowboys, they're just starting to build. I know they've had a couple of losses in the last sort of month of footy, but they just seem to be getting a bit better. And with Dearden back, if he does in fact play, I just like the Cowboys, but another toss of the coin for me, mate. I don't know how we're going to go in the tipping this week.
I'll go just as shit as I always do. It's been a little bit wet earlier this week, but it's been drying out, and the forecast is pretty good for the next few days. So it could be a quick track, and that really sets it up for the Cowboys. But then they've got plenty of speed out wide, the Sea Eagles as well. And the big man, Taniela Paseka, mate, he just getting better every week, so that'll be a good clash up front with him and Tomalolo and the big Cowboys pack as well. Last game of the weekend, Storm Titans. Isn't it funny? Like a month ago, we would have been going, Titans right in this one, but the Storm have had a good run. They seem to be tracking in the right direction. A bit of a setback. Was it last week or 2 weeks ago where they got towed up, but they should have. You'd expect all their guys to back up, given it's the Sunday. They've also got a couple of others back in Nick Meaney, Jerome Hughes, Jack Howarth. You would expect them to be well too good in this one.
Yeah, I think this will be a bit of a score for mine. I think Munster and Grant will really they'll be unhappy. They'll be kicking stones for quite a while, mate, about what's happened last night. So I think they'll be there to really put in a huge performance. The other one, we spoke about it last week, but Oren Keeley had a quick release from the Dolphins. Mate, he's a very impressive second row. I watched a lot of Oren play in the Q Cup. So expect Cooper Clark to hop into that middle rotation and Oren Keeley to play that left side back row slot. And he just needs an opportunity to play some first grade. He will show what he's got over the next few months with the Storm, and then have a huge off season with them and get cracking next year. So I'm expecting him to play very well. But with the addition of Howarth and Jerome Hughes back, Meaney again, they'll welcome the goal kicking there. They haven't done too well in the last few weeks, so that team's starting to get back to full strength and starting to look fairly impressive. So I'm expecting them to blow the cobwebs out of the Origin boys and rack up quite the score against the Titans.
Yeah, you would think so. Just a little side story that's just sort of popped into my head as I look through these team lists. Isn't it funny how the narrative changes? We were hearing all about how Lockie Elias should be given a crack in the Dragons side because of the scenario there. Now, since then, Kyle Flanagan's actually been one of the Dragons' better players the last 6 games since Young took over, and haven't heard any noise about Elias should be in the Titans team, despite the fact that they've got a young rookie playing in the 7.
Yeah, 100%, mate. We've spoken about it before, and Elias certainly isn't the only one. There's the other one who's gone to the Rabbitohs. I can't place his name at the moment. There's a few of them that had been floating around, and Braithen and Astor manages a couple of them, and we copped a bollocking on 360 about not getting an opportunity. Well, here we are now 12 months down the track, and they haven't been getting a first grade spot there either. Unfortunately, it's just not going to happen.
Yep. Well, it's good to be back into full-time NRL as much as we love State of Origin. So let's just go through our quick picks now, mate, before we sign off for the week. Game of the round. There's a few belters there. What do you like?
Yeah, a few belters, with the assumption that they all back up, and I don't think they will. I think the Dolphins and the Sharks would have been an absolute belter of a game. But with a few restings, I think that Manly Cowboys game could be, if it is a fast track, could be plenty of points and 2 to Lightning's quick backlines, mate. So I'll go with that game with the fact that the Dolphins and Sharks will probably rest a few, buddy. How about you?
I would have said that game as well, but just as a point of difference, I think the West Tigers Warriors game will be closer than we would expect. Tigers nearly back to full strength. down at Campbelltown, they're always pretty hard to beat, and they'll have a real crack there. So I reckon that should be a belter amongst a number of really tight games over the weekend. Lock of the week?
I think the Storm, mate, will really do a number on the Titans. So I think that's a lock. I think, as I said earlier, I think there's a few games could go either way with the Origin backups. But yeah, the Storm will be far too strong for mine.
For me, it's the Knights. I just think they're really rising to something now, and getting out there after a dry day in Sydney on a good deck, I think they'll be well too good for the Bunnies. Upset of the week, mate. What can you find there? Tell me you can find a win for Para.
No, I can't, mate. I think they need the Roosters need to rest a few more than just Teddy and Walker for mine. Sorry, buddy. Mate, I'm just actually looking through some of them. I can make a case for a number of them. You know, you've talked about the West Tigers. The Sharks, depending on who backs up. The Raiders are outsiders. There's a case for the Raiders. South and Newcastle are even on the betting. So I'm a bit dumbfounded by that. And then the Cowboys. The Cowboys are outsiders, as you'd expect, Manly being a Brookvale. But there's a number of upsets brewing here for round 19. So I can't wait to see how it all pans out.
Now, we didn't pick them. We didn't actually call them on the pod last week, but I did have a sneaky suspicion that Para would win last week, so I locked that in. So I'm going to double down on that and pick them again to beat the Roosters with a few of the Origin players not backing up, but I do so with a great deal of I was going to say desperation, of self-doubt.
Good luck, mate. That's what I'll say to that.
Thanks, mate. Love it. Well, like we said, great day to be wearing blue, and it was just good to have a good game. I know if you're a Queensland fan, you probably didn't think it was a good game, but that first half in particular had all the hallmarks of a tough Origin game. And again, that might be me looking through blue eye, but yeah, it's good.
Yeah, it was, mate. Looking forward now to getting the back end of the footy on. We'll do a fairly good deep dive into the ladder and where teams look for the run home next Monday's episode. So if you're liking it, give us a follow and share it around your mates if you can, so we can keep bringing you some content.
Yeah, well said. And we'll see if we can get Will back for Monday as well to hit it with some more really high quality stats. Have a good weekend, mate.
Cheers.